Hello and welcome to Unfudge Your Marketing. This is a show where I chat with business owners and leaders about their marketing mistakes, mishaps, and things that just didn't quite go as planned on their marketing. I'm your host. I'm Christy Mitchell. I'm a marketing strategist, and I love working with mission-driven mission-driven, client-centered service providers. Can you tell I'm like workshopping my own intro here? And I help them create strategic marketing plans to help them really reach their goals and have a greater impact in their business. Today, I am so excited to welcome Lisa Mallis to the show. Lisa brings her expertise to service-based business owners looking to work less and achieve more. With a background in education and over a decade of experience as a productivity expert, Lisa knows firsthand the challenges of balancing ambition with having a life. Known for her commitment to helping others reclaim their time, Lisa empowers her clients to transform their busyness into strategic action by utilizing their zone of genius. Lisa, I am so excited to have you on the show.
I am thrilled to be here. Thanks for having me, Christy.
Thanks for being here, taking time out of your day. We were having such a great conversation before we jumped on here, and we know more than just the person who introduced us. So that was such a fun kind of like, untying the knots or figuring that out. So John Gehring gets credit for introducing us. John has been a wonderful asset to me in the production of this show. And you know John. And then we started talking about Nermeen Zachary and Mary Kravitz and just all of these people that are in both of our worlds. So fun. I'm so glad we finally connected. And I'm really excited for the conversation we're going to have today. When we talked about bringing you on the show, you had mentioned that in the early days of your business, you had made an investment in a summit for marketing. So I want to take you back. Well, first, I want you to tell us how long ago that was. And I want you to kind of take us back to that moment and kind of where you were in your business and why you were thinking this was going to be the thing that was going to help you market yourself effectively.
Probably about 10 years now. And when I started my business, I started it like most business owners who came out of another career probably started their businesses thinking, I'm really good at what I do. And I know nothing about building a business or marketing. And so all I really need to do is create a website and like build it and they will come. And it turns out that was not true. And so
It still isn't true.
right, who would have thought it was more, there was more to it than that. So I'm about probably 6 months into my business and realizing that it is definitely more complicated than that. And someone had connected me with someone else who said, hey, we're doing the summit. I think you would be great for it. I had no idea what a summit was. I was coming from the world of education. We did not do summits. And she's like, and all you'll need is, and if you've ever participated in a summit, like all your need is a lot of stuff. And she's like, but I'm sure
This laundry list.
right, and she's like, but I'm sure you already have all this. And I was like, of course, because I am not going to admit that I don't have all this, pre-done educational material. And I was like, absolutely, I have. I love, thank you, flattered, thank you, totally want to be involved. Because in my head, I thought, how hard can it be to pull together this? I'm from the field of education. Like, I can pull together a worksheet and, a presentation and all these things. Never really recognizing that wasn't a perfect ideal client fit. It's a lot more than a worksheet. And like, there's the lead funnels and all the emails and the landing pages. There's a lot of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I had no idea.
There's so many things we can pull out just from this initial kickoff of this conversation. The first thing I'm hearing from you, Lisa, was and correct me if I'm wrong, I never want to put words in my guest's mouth, but it was almost like, okay, I just need to fake it till I make it. Like, I got asked to do this thing and I'm not going to say no. Like, I'm going to be like, yeah, sure, I'll do this thing.
Yeah, like I respected the person who connected us.
Mm-hmm.
And I researched the person who was doing the summit, and she was a big deal in the online space.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, okay. If this is a way to build my email list, and right now my email list consists of like random people I know that I put on there that I didn't even know you
Neighbors and
had. Like,
friends.
yeah, like I didn't know you had to have permission. I just like put them on there. Like my email list was coming out of my Outlook, like not even. So anyway, there's so many things I did not really right. And so I thought, okay, well, this must be how it's done.
Mm-hmm.
And so then I started down the path and quickly recognized I had no idea what I was doing. The time frame was exceptionally tight.
Mm.
I was doing everything was against everything I believed in when I was working with clients. Like I'm working nights and weekends. I'm skipping things. We're coming into the holiday season. I'm skipping events with family, saying things like, let me just get through this. It won't be like this forever. I started my business for freedom and flexibility, and I'm working a lot of hours and having
Just
no
to pull
idea.
together the material you needed for the summit.
That's not even for my ideal client. Yes. Yes.
Okay, so there's a whole nother like challenge to unwind there. So when was it that you realized this summit wasn't geared towards your ideal client?
Well, and I don't think I even recognized that until like
Mm-hmm.
way further down. So like I started getting into it and realized I was in over my head like within 2 weeks, and mentioned something to the person who had introduced us. I was like, why did you think this was a good idea? And she's
You're like,
like,
I'm too new for this.
I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. She's like, oh, you know what? I know someone who might be able to help. And she hooked me up with a marketing coach slash business coach slash a lot of things. And in that experience, there was a lot I gained from that experience. And one of those things was clarity around my ideal client, which turns out
Mm,
was not who that summit was geared towards.
okay.
So like there was definitely a silver lining to that cloud. Absolutely. Like I would not have been able to dig in to who is my ideal client and how do I evaluate the right marketing opportunities
Mm-hmm.
had I not been hooked in with this coach that early in my business.
Mm-hmm.
But we're talking hours and hours of work because now I'm in and she's teaching me how to
You're
build
not
a collateral.
because you said yes.
Yep, I said yes, and she's teaching me how to build the collateral, how to build the funnels, redid my website, so, like, it was a real website, like, not one I did myself on GoDaddy,
Mm-hmm.
like, and then which meant hiring VAs and all the disclaimers and, like, all those things that I knew nothing about, so it legitimatized my business,
Yes.
and a week before the summit was supposed to start, everything canceled.
Oh my gosh. I think we were like both taking like a moment of silence for this experience.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, why did it cancel? Or what were you told?
Well, so what I was told was that the person who was running it never looked to see if the name was already trademarked.
Oh no.
And so she had
Wow.
invested all this money and all this time and all the things that go into, like, I wasn't the only person participating. Like, I mean, there was so
Right.
much she had
Yeah,
done.
summits are so involved with how many people and all the back end process on the person running its end. And there's a lot
Yeah.
involved, lots of
So,
moving pieces.
I mean, my involvement was I had paid to hire someone to teach me how to do the things. But what I
Yeah.
gained out of that was like the mental pieces I needed and the,
Yeah.
professional things I needed. So it wasn't a waste on my end. Other
Right.
than the collateral was geared towards, like, I didn't really reuse the collateral. So there's that. Um,
Yeah.
but like, it
And you
wasn't,
were missing out on holiday things with your
I know,
family to
and the
sacrifice to try and
time.
hustle and get all the stuff done. Yeah.
Yeah, getting the time. But like the money invested, Like that was like I needed that and would not have made that type of investment that early in my business had it not been for this.
Mhm. And that's one thing that I gravitate towards that outlook on things anyway, and that's part of what I love about this show is like, yes, we're talking about the marketing mistakes, but really we're talking about the lessons learned, and I love that my guests always bring that. It's like, yeah, this happened, but here's what I gained out of it, right after. And so I love that you can see that even though you did totally stress yourself out, you committed to something that was maybe a bit more ahead of where you were at or prepared to create all this stuff for business wise. You recognize that it wasn't actually your ideal client who, I mean, it's out, when anyone's new in business, first of all, like, you don't know who your ideal client is. So that's totally normal, which let's talk about that in a second. But then also like you invested in somebody to help you get all these pieces together. You sacrificed the very things that you help your clients not do, right? You're like, oh yeah, all right, I can't go to my family holiday things because I got to get this stuff done. Like there are all these things that really did not go well for you, but you're able to recognize it kind of accelerated. It sounds like that process
Mhm.
of hiring that marketing business coach like really accelerated what you probably wouldn't have committed to otherwise.
Oh, absolutely. Like here I am, home-based business, thinking I don't have to outlay any cash. Like as
Mm.
solopreneur, like I don't need any seed money. I don't need any startup money. I'm
Yep.
gonna band-aid together a website. Like I'll
Mm-hmm.
sign a client, take that money, use that money to
Yes.
build a thing, do a thing, whatever.
Build the plane while you're flying it, right?
Yeah. And so that completely changed when I invested big girl money in a real coach who
Mm-hmm.
knew, I mean, really skilled in her craft. And that jumped me absolutely.
Light years ahead.
Hmm.
So I was going to ask you earlier in this conversation, I was going to ask you, so if you could do it all over again, would you have signed up for the summit?
Right. Really good question. And so I would have liked to have figured out a way to have worked with the coach I worked with,
Mm-hmm.
not having done, not having signed up for the summit.
Right, because you had this huge pressure of time and in specific deliverables that you needed to be able to pass off for this summit. So that
Mhm.
is totally fair, and I love that answer. And I think that that's a huge lesson for listeners to take is that sometimes you can't wait until you have the money to invest in your business. And disclaimer, I'm not giving financial advice. I'm not a financial planner. I'm not a business finance expert. But I've honestly, Lisa, I can tell you, like, I've experienced that in my business as well, where it's like, I'm kind of at this point and I'm like, I don't really have the money to invest, but I also really feel like I need that thing to help me get to where I need to go. And it's uncomfortable and it doesn't feel great. And sometimes that's the thing you need to do to
Right,
get to
right,
take that next stepping stone that you need to in your business.
right. Like one of the things I'll share with my clients is if the pain of staying is less than the pain of moving,
Mm,
you're not going to move.
yeah.
And whatever that looks like. And
Mhm.
many times I said, finances are a real thing. And sometimes it's find a way, make a way because the pain of staying is so great that you're like,
Yes.
yeah, I I need to figure it out. And sometimes it's, yeah, I'm okay where I'm at.
Right. Yeah. I think that's a great way to frame it.
And I
That's a
think
great way to frame it.
at that point, the pain of moving wasn't that great.
Mhm.
And so I would not have invested
Yep.
because I didn't have that large of a need, except for it was
Yeah.
driven from that I can't be embarrassed. I don't know what I'm doing. I can't admit I don't know what I'm doing. I need to pull all my stuff together.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Oh wow. It was the catalyst that you needed because you
Mhm.
got yourself into this painful situation, which then made you be like, okay, I have to invest because The pain of making that financial investment is not as great as the pain I'm feeling of the stress from what I committed to and what I feel like I can't deliver on my own.
Yes.
So interesting. So interesting. Okay, so I want to go back to, this wasn't the plan for the conversation, but I want to go back to the target audience topic and realizing in hindsight after you did the work with this business coach, because again, I hear this so often with earlier businesses, and I tend to work with the more established businesses who know who their audience is, at least an idea of it, and then we kind of fine tune and hone in. But I think that this whole thing of niching down and figuring out who your audience is, I think it's so incredibly challenging for new business owners. And I would love to know, I have my own thoughts, but I'll reserve them. I want you to go first. Looking back on that piece of this equation, what was that journey like for you in figuring out who your ideal clients were?
When I first started, I knew that I wanted to do work around time management of some sort. And I wasn't exactly clear on what that was going to look like. And so I started out in the professional organizer business realm. And I came out of high school education. And I recognized that high school students who were very strong academically struggled once they got to college, often because they never had to study in high school and then didn't have those time management skills once they got to college. I thought then that potentially part of my niche was going to be that early college student. Which is why the summit, which was geared towards parents, we thought, okay, maybe this is it. But it was geared towards all parents. And not necessarily, like, it was way, way, way too wide. So anyway, so
not college, not parents of college age kids.
No, and not even like, it was, anyway, it was moving on. So like, I started there thinking, okay, maybe this is where I'm at. Did a little work there, had some challenges figuring out who was I marketing to. Am I marketing to the kid? Am I marketing to the parent? The parent's paying, but the kid is making, like, and I was like, I don't even know what I'm doing here. And while I was figuring that out, people kept coming to me who were women business owners, service-based business owners. And I recognized this is where I'm at. And it just took a little bit to start to fine tune exactly what was the work that I was doing. What did that look like? And now that we're 10 years, a little over 10 years in, it's now very clear, but it was an evolution along the way. When I first started out, it was definitely, I'm not working with anybody with a team. I am only working with I'm only working with a business owner and probably a woman, probably service-based. And then, then as it grew, I was like, oh yeah, go ahead. They can have a team. Now it's service-based business owner with a small team in the area of time management, specifically around usually delegating and priorities. Now I know this is my place. This is where I'm really effective.
Yeah. And I think that is part of the challenge, I think, when you're newer in business is I think you have to have those experiences. You have to try out, this thing that it's such an evolutionary process. And like, I remember having a coffee chat in my very first year of business with a more established business owner in the marketing space. And I had this realization. I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to get comfortable in the gray. Like, I'm a very like black and white, like, here's what we need to do. Let's take action. Let's get it done. Let's move on. And I was like, oh my God, this whole thing is gray. Like, this could be anything that I want it to be. And like, that's cool, but also super challenging.
Right.
So yeah, when it comes to that, who do I want? Like, I think I know what I want to offer, but who is it that I want to work with? I think we have to try a bunch of things. We have to go after the thing we think it is and then learn from that and say, okay, maybe it's this. And we have to go through that trial and error process, I think, and really pay close attention to what is it that we like about certain clients and what do we not like about certain clients or the way that we're offering our thing or whatever it is. And just keep kind of iterating and fine tuning. So what I'm thinking, Lisa, is, this conversation about this summit that you invested in and you were like, okay, let's go. For those earlier stage businesses, I'm thinking a big takeaway from this conversation is don't go and invest in reaching a very specific audience if you're not totally sure in your business that that's who you're going to be working with.
Right. Right. And as we're talking, I can remember now those early conversations with her. And I remember her saying, like, I remember asking, well, I feel like my stuff's not exactly aligned or in her saying, oh no, you're going to help round us out. You'll round us out. And I'm like thinking, oh, okay, well, she must know what she's talking about. Like she's done a bunch of these. You don't know.
Like
And
she's been doing this longer than me.
right. And so there was that little like piece. And I was like, well, you don't know, like, I'm going to ignore my gut because that's typically my default anyway. And I'm certainly going to ignore it here because, I've owned my business for a hot minute and I have no idea what a summit is. So we're just going to ignore it. But yet it was there because I remember thinking, oh, like you're talking child rearing stuff. And like, man, we're really far away from kids going to college. And
yes. Yeah, that's so interesting. And trusting our gut is definitely a recurring theme. Like if I had to pick like top 3 recurring themes on this show, trusting your gut is for sure one of them. So that's really interesting to hear that you do remember even 10 years ago, you questioned like, is this really the right thing? And I think that's another thing. If there is anyone earlier in business listening to this conversation, is like, that's another thing to be aware of in those early days is that you probably are not inclined to trust your gut because you know that you're new and you're learning. And I mean, it probably holds true for people pivoting in their businesses too, right? It's like, okay, well, this is new territory for me. And so I can't really trust my gut.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, she was a big deal. I mean, she still is a big deal, but I was like, okay.
Yeah. So how do we as business owners learn to do that?
So I work with a coach. I always say coaches need coaches too. Yeah. And I work with a coach, and her advice to me is always slow down. Like she will always tell me, slow down, take a breath. And when I do that, like, because I will hear it or feel it or whatever. And then I'll be like, yeah, no, it's not valid. And she's like, so it's there. You recognize it. You choose to ignore it. She's like, so if you will just slow down.
So simple and so spot on. Like so spot on. It resonates so much with me because I do have that like hustle, like make decisions, move on, let's get into action. And it is so hard for me to slow down. And the best coaches I've worked with are the ones who have helped me do that for sure. I love that. Such a great piece of advice. Lisa, thank you so much for coming on the show. As we get ready to wrap up this conversation, we covered a lot of ground, I think, but is there any kind of like last lesson learned or words of wisdom that you want to leave?
I would say, and we didn't touch this directly, however, I would say try to stay in your zone of genius. So like when this whole thing was happening, and early on in my business, I didn't even have that phrase. I didn't have that idea, but I knew instinctively what it was. Like, these are the things I do really well. This is what I'm good at and I love to do. And that whole summit experience was outside of that. And there's a difference between stretching to something unfamiliar or something new. And there's a difference of putting yourself into a mold that's not you. And that is what I did there. And so my advice would be like, know you and do you. Like, just do you.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever that looks like in life and
Yes.
business and marketing, like, just do you.
Yes. I absolutely love that piece of advice because I talk about like authenticity and finding aligned strategies and all of those things. So I absolutely love that advice. I'm sure the listeners will love it as well. Lisa, as we get ready to close out the show, very lastly, if people want to learn more about you and the work that you're doing, how can they connect with you? How can they learn more?
The easiest way is just go to the website, impactivestrategies.com. And on there, there's a couple easy audits, like a time audit and a delegating audit. Take those, and I'll give you personalized feedback.
Awesome. I love that. And your business name has impact and strategy in it. Like, we just have so much alignment. I love it. I love it. Thank you again, Lisa, so much for coming on